Welcome back to the channel. I'm Brian from Apex Auction Car Reconditioning. I thought we would get away from the table and sit in a more comfortable chair with a little bit better of a backdrop. 1963 or 4 Chevy Corvair. Beautiful, timeless classic. Today, I wanted to make a video on absolutely everything I look for when I'm going to look at a used car. And it doesn't matter if it's at an auction. You know, obviously it's going to differ what I can look at an auction compared to a private sale or a lot. Because with a private sale or a lot, I'm going to be able to take it for a test drive on the roadways and see how it shifts and all that other stuff. And we're going to get to that, what to look for when we're going to break this down into categories. What I look for in the interior, and we'll start there. And I'm not going to just sit here in this seat. I'm going to grab you guys and we're going to use different vehicles as examples and I'll show you what I look for. Interior, materials and everything I look for. Exterior, panel gaps and everything I look for and some of the tools that I use. Then mechanical issues, and then starting the vehicle before driving it and just letting it run and listening and paying attention and then getting out and walking around on what I look for. And then the actual road test on the roadway, what I look for and feel for and try to notice with the vehicle. Finally, the pre-sale sort of segment of the procedure, right before you're ready to exchange cash or a check or whatever for the vehicle. There's a small checklist of things that need to be done before we complete the sale. So I'm excited about the video. I'm happy to pass on this information. This is going to be more detailed than what I normally show in my videos when I'm at auctions, and I don't have the time to do that. I wanted to have a detailed video of everything I look for that will help you make the right choice for your purchase. Let's get started. Let's start with the interior. Sitting in the interior of a vehicle, the very first thing I like to do is sit in the seat and sort of get a feel of what it would be like to spend a lot of time in this cabin. I drive a lot, guys. I don't know about you, but I'm guessing you drive a lot too. And if I'm going to spend a lot of time in this cabin, I'm going to look around, I'm going to get a feel for it, I'm going to get a feel for the seat, the comfort, the seating position. I don't like seats that are too low where my legs are up above, where my knees are up above my hips. I like it kind of the other way around, probably why I'm an SUV or a truck guy, where the seat's higher and my legs can drop down a little bit further. It's just a more comfortable seating position for me. It may be different for you, but I'm going to sit in, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to look around, and I'm going to actually feel the seat. I'm going to reach around a little bit, feel the seat, and if I'm comfortable in it, and I know I can spend a lot of time in this cabin, which I'm going to have to, I go from there. The next thing I'm going to do is look at the overall physical condition of the interior. Is the dash cracked or lifted or peeling or bubbled? The buttons all over the place, especially on the dash and the infotainment center and the steering wheel, are they rubbed off or worn through? Are the knobs and buttons all there? A lot of the newer vehicles now just have a screen where all of the controls are touch button on the screen. Is the screen worn through from the person touching the same area over and over and over again? I look for that if it's just covered with screens. Some cars have a screen here, one there, or one all the way across, one there, and even little screens on the steering wheel. And I'll check and make sure that these screens are in great shape and not worn through. The next thing I'm going to do is look at the seats and make sure that the bolsters aren't worn. That's no big deal for me. I know how to repair that stuff. But if it's a big deal for you, you know, that can be an expensive repair if you're not going to do it yourself. Also, where everybody leans their arm and elbows on the pad here or on the door panels, and then I'll back up and get an overall view of the door panel. Sometimes these areas are cracked. Sometimes the door panel is actually pulling away because these are only held on by plastic clips and maybe a screw here or there. So grab onto the bottom, give it a good shake. If it's solid, you're good to go. If there's no cracks there, if they don't have things sitting in there melting away at the plastic, if there's no burn marks from cigarettes, if somebody's been smoking in a car, you know, I have packages at the shop that'll get rid of that smell, but it's so much more extra work for me. Sometimes I'll walk away just for that alone. But you can see if it's been taken care of with no burn marks. This is actually a great example of what I would look for. Also, steering wheel. You know, this one here is starting to get worn, and the center console storage lid also gets worn right here. Also check the backrests here. Also check where people grab for the seat belt. Is it all dirty or worn? How bad is the seat belt? That can get pretty grody and, you know, pretty nasty. Overall cleanliness in a vehicle tells me a lot about the vehicle. If it's clean, guys, inside and out, it's more than likely maintained. It's not the story all of the time, but if it's clean inside and out, it's normally maintained as well. Then, well, also, don't forget about the headliner. The headliner can start to fail and hang down on you, and eventually will be down on your head as well. Also, floor mats. Are there floor mats? They're expensive, and a lot of cars, when I go to buy them, they don't have any in, so that's an expense right off the bat. There are heel marks worn through the floor mat, through the rug, through the padding and the carpeting, down to the metal, and it's just like, you know, I check the carpeting as well. Here is an example of something that can get by you. Here is a rip in the perforated part of this leather seat. A little bit easier to fix if it's on this area right here, which is solid, but when it's perforated, it makes your repair a little harder. I can repair those, but not to a point where you don't know they're there anymore. I can make a repair on a patch like this, where you don't know it's there. The best thing to do is just replace this whole patch. So just some things to look out for. The next thing I'm going to do is either hit the button for the power or turn the key to the accessory knob and just get power to the interior without the engine running. And I am going to go through, and my pre-purchase inspection is lengthy, and I let the owner know that. If they're in a hurry to get somewhere, or if they need me to leave within 45 minutes to an hour, we're going to have to reschedule that for another time, because I take my time and I go through all of these things. If somebody is rushing you, that's a red flag. By the way, I have a red flag video. I'll try and remember to put the link either down below in the description or up at the top here. I have a red flag video as well. But that is a red flag. If somebody's rushing through your pre-purchase inspection, which is very important, run like hell. I'm going to put the accessory on, and I'm going to run through, make sure the infotainment center works, and the radio, and all of these buttons. Everything that's available to me, including all of the windows, the power mirrors, making sure the power mirrors work, the locks, you know, that you could switch in and out of four-wheel drive, making sure all the lights work, checking what lights do or do not come on the dash. The lights that come on are just your obvious gas gauge and all that other stuff. The lights you don't want, check engine, ABS, brake, anti-lock, you name it. Those are some red flags right there. I'm going to go and go through all of the air conditioner settings. First, I'm going to turn it on, but not with the AC. I'm going to turn it on with the heat. And then I'm going to go through all of the settings up top, these, down below floor, and make sure the actuators work. Guys, actuators are not very expensive, 30, 40 bucks, and they're placed all over the place. They're actuators that move the flaps from front to back, that give you cold to hot, move the air from the top to the middle to the bottom. They're cheap, but hard to get to. If you need to replace them, sometimes the whole dash has to come out, and that's $1,000 or $2,000 plus your actuator and labor. So I run through all of the settings, and then I turn it on the fan and make sure all the settings of the fan works. Then I turn it to cold and make sure it gets cold. If it doesn't get cold, a lot of times I'll walk away from the deal, because that's expensive. Condensers, compressors, you're talking about $1,500, $2,000 or more. And if you're in the South, you need an air conditioner. Even if you're in the Northeast here, where I'm at, there's 2-3 months out of the year where you need some AC. If you could deal with the heat without it, cheers. I can't. There's a month or two where I actually need AC. So make sure all of your accessories work. Make sure the seat goes up, back, levels up, levels down, if the lumbar works. And then finally, I will go through and make sure all of my power points and power sources work. If not, it could be a fuse or something a little bit more complicated, and the owner would have to take care of that. There should be power points up front and in the back, and a lot of vehicles have dual and 3-zone climate control systems. Make sure all of them work. Sometimes just the front works and those in the back don't. And if you have your furry friend in the back there and you're nice and cool and he doesn't have, well, you know what I'm talking about. That takes care of the interior, both physically with materials and also function with your accessories and your outlets. Now we're going to jump to the outside of the vehicle, and a good 15, 20 minutes has gone by now, so we're going to spend some time on the exterior. And the first thing we're going to be looking at is walking around and looking for the obvious. I'm going to take a quick trip around the vehicle, and I'm going to take in dents, if there is any. Larger dents, smaller dents. I'm also going to look at the 4 corners, because even the most experienced drivers can sometimes pepper up these corners, rubbing against something and taking the paint off. And if they're good to go, I have an idea of dents, small ones, dings, to larger ones, to bumps and bruises. It's time to look at panel gaps after that. Panel gaps are the gaps in between panels. Let's take this here, for instance, and this is a new car, so the panel gap should be perfect all the way around. But if you have a hood gap on this side that's wide and closed in on this side, something's been replaced or adjusted and it's been hit, and you need to know that. You can also have panel gaps on the doors, guys. Panel gaps on the doors can mean your hinges or the latch system is failing, which means it can be closing in over here, opening up down there. This alignment can be off. Something to look for. When I'm done looking at the gaps all the way around, it's time to take a closer look. And this is where I'll bring instruments with me to help me find areas that could have been repainted or repaired. I bring my paint depth gauge, and there are many available. There are economical units available on Amazon. I bring one of mine with every vehicle I go to look at. And I know how thick the surface should be on every vehicle. There's a big difference there because that has paint protection film on the hood but not the fender. The difference between the fender and the door should be very close. And it is. It's extremely close. Now, if I had the fender that read 4.4 and that read 8.4, it's been repainted. If I have a reading that is, say, 12.4, I know there's filler or Bondo underneath and then repainted. This newer vehicle is going to be consistent all the way around, and consistency is what you look for when you have a paint depth gauge. If you don't have consistency, there has been a repaint or a repair that the owner needs to let you know about. It's very imperative. If you do not have a paint depth gauge with you, you can also see visual signs of repainting. Number one, you would have a panel that has a ton of orange peel, and every car has orange peel, new, used, repainted, or original paint. And if you have a car that has heavy orange peel here and not so heavy there, and a difference in texture, it has been repainted. Also, look for dust nibs. Dust nibs and runs also indicate repainting, and then also you can see sometimes sand marks underneath the clear and the color coat from improper body work that shows that it has been worked on and repainted, and you need to know about that. Another great indication, open up the doors and the hood and the trunk and look at the edges in here. Look for tape marks, overspray all over the place, overspray in the corners here. Look for bolts that might have been removed and the panel shifted and then retightened. You're going to see marks of where it's painted and where it's not. And that will indicate new panels, panels that have been adjusted, panels that have been repaired, panels that have been replaced. And the vehicle has been in some sort of a collision. This has plastic over it, but the radiator support, these can come up with just pulling some clips. Look where the radiator support is exposed to make sure it's not crinkled, make sure these supports aren't crinkled, these areas here aren't crinkled, or if they've been crinkled and then hammered back down, you're going to see that as well, even if they have been repainted. If you see those, it has been hit, and you need to know about that. Another indication that it could have been repainted for some reason or another is if their badges are gone anywhere on a panel. If you're familiar with the vehicle, you know where the badges are exactly. If they're not there, it's either been debadged or repainted. Then I'll move to the wheels and tires. Great example here. This has been curbed heavily and it took a chunk out of the tire. For me, that would be a no-go. That would have to be replaced, and we would talk about the wheel because that doesn't look like it's in great shape either. Something would have to be repaired there and replaced before we go any further with the deal. Go all the way around and closely inspect all 4 wheels and tires. The next thing I'm going to do is I bring my Husky foam mats with, usually 2 of them. I can lay them, if it's been raining or it's really hot, I can lay 2 side by side, and that'll give me enough surface area to stay off of the ground. But I bring my light. You could bring a pen light. This is a snap-on work light, and it gives me a light here and then also a light there, and I can get underneath here and check for rust and leaks. Those are the 2 things I'm looking for under here. Rust at the frame, unibody, the metal parts under the lower part of the body, looking for rust on the suspension, looking for rust on the exhaust, rust holes in the exhaust, and then leaks. Motor, transmission, transfer case, which will be around here, and then your front and rear diff. Look at them closely and make sure they're not leaking. I already have the hood open, so we're going to do an underhood visual as well. And we're going to overlook, and I like to look for aftermarket parts because I don't like aftermarket parts on the cars that I'm going to find. Extra cables on the batteries, that indicates aftermarket audio systems. I don't like them. I don't like how they draw on the battery. I also look for parts that have been recently replaced, maybe an alternator, a battery, you name it. I'll look at the hoses, I'll look at the belts, make sure that they aren't cracked and need to be replaced, and just give an overall visual here, and then we'll go to the next part, which is going to be what fluids are, what fluids can be checked, what fluids are available to be looked at. So on this one, we can check the oil right here, make sure it's full, and see if it needs to be changed. That's not bad. That has a bit of a golden tinge to it, and it's not crazy dark. And it's full, perfect where it's supposed to be. I love to see that. And that always reminds me then to come in to the vehicle and look up and to the left. Up and to the left, you should see a sticker, and that's one right there that always indicates when and what mileage the oil should be changed next. And that indicates that the vehicle is being regularly maintained, and that gives me a good feeling. I can also check the brake fluid, antifreeze level right here. You have your battery right there, and some transmissions are sealed and you can't check them. Some engine oil levels are sealed, and the only thing you can rely on is a dummy light in the dash, which I can't stand, and I normally stay away from those vehicles. Next, I'm going to grab the key. I'm going to get back in the driver's seat. I'm going to close the door. I'm going to keep the hood open, but I'm going to close the door and I'm going to start the engine and just let it idle and take in what I'm hearing. I'm listening for squeals, which could be belts, power steering. I'm listening for if I turn the air conditioner, does it draw the power of the engine down? That means a compressor could be going bad. If I hear a squeal, that's a belt. I'm looking for taps and knocks, timing chain noises. I'm listening for exhaust leaks. I just want it quiet and I want to listen. That's what I just let it idle for a little while and I let it to come up to temperature. Then I get out of the vehicle and I come up and I get a closer listen to the engine standing right next to it, listening for those exact same things. Knocks and pings and squeals. And I look at the engine and if I see it running erratically like that, it's a misfire. Then I come to the back and I look at the exhaust. Do I see blue smoke? Do I see black smoke? Burning gas and oil, running too rich, burning oil. Do I see white smoke? Head gasket issues, looking for condensation to burn off. A little bit of condensation is normal, but if it keeps coming out and keeps coming out, head gasket. And another way to see if there's head gasket problems is to open up the cap for the oil fill, checking to see if it looks like a milkshake under there, looking at the dipstick. Is it bubbling at the reservoir for the antifreeze? That could be exhaust gases, being forced back up into the coolant. So many ways to check for a blown head gasket. While it's warming up, I'm walking around and checking the tires. Do we have the same tire sizes? Do we have the same tires all the way around? So many cars I look at may have a Yokohama up here and a Mavis tire up here. We have Dueler Bridgestones there. And I like to have the same fitment, size, and brand tread all the way around. This is the ZR15S. The port for the reader is easy to access on the truck here. It's right here. It's normally in this area. Sometimes, you have to really dig to find them. Luckily, mine has, when you turn on the power, it gives you light so you can find the port and plug into it quickly. So let's get the power on. All you need to do, you don't need to start it. Just turn on the accessory mode. Let it go through all of its cycles. And this one here has no data to share. So everything's green, everything's good to go, and that's what you want to see. Okay, guys, it's now time for the test drive. And this is very important so you can find out if the vehicle shifts. Does it shift really rough and jerky? Does it slip? Does it shift into all the gears? If it has overdrive, does it shift into overdrive? Does it shudder? Does it vibrate? All of the issues you would have with your transmission, automatic, or if it's standard, how's the clutch? How does it shift? Do you have all the gears? Are you missing a gear? All of that has to be tested. Once I know the transmission good, I'll concentrate on the engine. Is it running smoothly? How is the acceleration and deceleration? How is it pulling? How does it sound? Is it misfiring? Are there check engine lights popping on in the dash now that we're driving? Is it overheating? Checking out the mirror to see if it smokes upon heavy acceleration. What color is the smoke? So much to look for, but you need to take the time to look for all of this, because this is the time. Once you've plopped down your big wad of cash for this vehicle or a check and you do the paperwork for it, it's yours. You know, I mean, some dealerships you can buy a vehicle. CarMax used to have a 36-hour grace period. If you didn't like the vehicle, you brought it back. That's non-existent these days. So do all of your homework before you make the purchase. Once the engine's fine and the trans is fine, paying attention to the power steering. How does it steer? Is it hard to steer? Do I get a good feeling of the roadway with the steering? Does it make a sound? Does it squeal? I'll concentrate on the braking. When I step on the brake, is the steering wheel shaking, or is it going like this? Warped rotors. Do you hear a grinding noise? That can mean pad on rotor, metal on rotor with no pad whatsoever. If somebody's letting their brake system get that low without taking care of it, what other maintenance and systems are they neglecting and not taking care of? Brake systems are so easy, pads are so easy to do it yourself. It's not crazy expensive to get those changed out, so it's something very important. Does it squeal when you go on the brakes, coming to a stop? Does it get hung up? Does it pull your vehicle to the left or the right when you go on the brakes? That can mean a problem with the braking system. So many things to look out for there. Take your time, take it all in. Take it for a nice long test drive. All right, that brings us to nearly the very end, and that is the pre-delivery or pre-purchase. Really, it's kind of more of the clerical work. First, you want to ask if the title is present so you can see it, and I like to see it first, because if the title is not in hand, or if you go to an auction, if it's not in the office, I'm not bidding on it. If it is not a clean title, if it's reconstructed or salvaged, and these are all things that are typed on the top of the title, which is why you want to see it. It needs to be clean and clear. It's going to be a no-go for me. If the person showing me the title, if their name isn't on the title, it's somebody selling somebody else's vehicle, or trying to, or being a stand-in, I'm done there. I don't want to have anything to do with that. Some vehicles may be stamped that there's a lien on the title, a lien from maybe a mechanic, a lien from maybe a bank, and it will not be able to be transferred into somebody else's name until that lien is taken care of, and you need to know about that. That could become a nightmare. It's different in different states, so depending on whatever state you're in, look at that title. Also, keys, key fobs. Very expensive, and sometimes I get one key fob, sometimes I get two. Sometimes I get one, and the owner forgets that there's a second key fob in the house or on the dresser or whatever. So I will ask him, do you have other sets of keys? I don't care what they are. They need to be included in the sale because they're programmed for that vehicle, and that's something you need to bring up as well. You know, that's absolutely, everything that, in a nutshell, that I look for when I'm looking at a used vehicle. And I'm hoping some of those practices will rub off on you guys and make your life a whole lot easier. I hate to hear when friends or customers pick up a new car and they have serious problems and it puts them in a serious bind financially. It could really be heartbreaking, and I don't want to see you guys have that. So I wanted to share as much information as I could and make this video as detailed as I could. Because when I'm walking through the auctions with you guys, I'm doing this really quick and a lot of it off camera. Hope that helps. This has been Brian from Apex Auction Car Reconditioning. If you have something you would like to add to this list, please down in the comment section. If you've never commented before, comment on this because I love your opinions. I love to read. As long as we can keep it civil down in the comment section, I love when you guys give your opinions and add information. It's just invaluable. This has been Brian from Apex Auction Car Reconditioning. I'll catch you in the next video.